You guys so much for tuning in to the From Logo podcast. I'm Kirby, that's Riley, that's Colton. We are going to be talking about the game tonight, the Blazers games at 7:30. Is that right?
That is right.
Against the Los Angeles Clippers. We'll be doing a pregame show for that, as well as talking about the team in general the last week or so of action. So what do you guys see happening tonight? What's going down? Riley, you had a little bit of a particular take about what might happen tonight. Lay it on us.
We're
Big
getting
guy.
torched. It's not going to be pretty, I don't think. The over-under does not look particularly good for this game. The fact is that the Blazers just have a lot of trouble scoring. And I don't necessarily think that the Clippers are going to score like... I don't see James Harden going off for a 45-point triple-double or anything like that. Because the Blazers defensively are not bad. They've been looking really good. They've been able to not shut down, but somewhat control some of the best players in the league even. But the fact is that the Blazers are just not going to outscore a team that has their firepower.
And we've said this before early this season a couple times. When the Blazers are shorthanded, that really shows up. And right now they're missing their vets. They're missing Brogdon, Grant, and Ayton. And that is a lot of scoring out of the lineup. Riley said it when we were talking about this kind of pre-show. The Blazers don't really have a lot of scorers that are consistent outside of Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe. And the Clippers have a lot of those kind of perimeter defenders. They can throw the way of those two guys. So it's really going to be on the, Tamani Kamara's, the Dwap Reeds, and see, you're already saying doesn't inspire confidence, right?
No.
No slight to those guys, but those guys to pick up the scoring slack. And Jabari Walker is going to need to have a big game, corralling the boards inside. Scoot, if Scoot has a positive game, that's going to really help out, especially distributing the ball. But it's going to be a tough uphill battle. As the resident positive guy on the podcast,
Mr. Optimism.
I'm going to predict a close loss.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game. I think just matchup issues, as you mentioned, and the veteran disparity on the team as well. It's going to be a tough night for the Blazers. A few weeks ago, you were mentioning, talking about how it was a little annoying to see Brogdon and Jeremy Grant and those guys taking the lion's share of the shots, especially down the stretch. But I do think in their absence has become pretty obvious why that was, why they were taking so many shots. The rest of the young guys, as much upside and athleticism and all that they can bring, it looks pretty ugly when they start having to take the lion's share of the shots in the last game, the Dallas game.
And it's not...
Kamara was like that was the Warriors game.
Yeah.
Kamara was like 6 of 20. Scoot was like 4 of 17. So they're definitely showing their youth. But I mean, there's still a ton of upside in that youth. They both play amazing defense, first of all. To have a couple of rookies like being ball stoppers and some of the best defenders I've seen on the Blazers in years, that's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, and it wasn't so much... I know that those guys are going to take the most shots. It's more how they were getting the shots. I don't like 1-on-5 Brogdon ISO in the fourth quarter, 4 possessions in a row. I don't like stretches where Shaedon Sharpe doesn't touch the ball for 6 minutes straight, which has happened multiple times in the fourth quarter this year. Anthony Simons can be a ball stopper sometimes too. He likes to shoot.
Not on defense.
Yeah.
I'm
talking about a different kind of ball stopper here.
That's an offensive ball stopper.
He has looked improved on the defensive end this year, but he's still not a lights out defender by any means.
Boy likes to shoot. He likes to get his shots up.
The Blazers need reliable scoring.
He makes them. He makes a lot of his shots. He just loves taking them.
Exactly. I mean, they need reliable scoring, but you got to keep everyone involved. That's what I'm talking about. And with the veterans, namely Jeremy and Brogdon, sometimes that's what I was talking about, where when they go the whole possession where Jeremy dribbles it and gets a screen and then still crashes to the rack 1-on-3 or something, I don't like that.
I do feel like that is a symptom, though, of the youth on the team, because they're not able to just move the ball without thinking about it. They're kind of worried about making particular passes. They're worried about putting guys in situations that they would be unsuccessful in, so they're kind of forced to do a little more, I think.
In a game like the game tonight, what I'm worried about is that I'm not sure if the guys are going to know who they're supposed to be passing to other than Shaden and Anthony. I mean, like, our points leader is Jeremy, our rebounds leader is Aiton, and our assist leader is Brogdon, and all three of them are out tonight. So, and it kind of seems like the Blazers aren't that interested in playing any of those guys a whole lot right now, or maybe as the season goes, I think we're going to
lay your theory out there, right?
More stretches like this. Well, I think there's a couple of things that are going on. I think that, for one thing, those guys have shown some value so far this season, especially Jeremy and Brogdon. I don't think you really could have asked for a much better start from those two guys, other than Brogdon's like kind of injury issues. They both look like serviceable guys that could play for a good team. And the rumor out there is, and this, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out, that the Blazers are probably
don't shortchange yourself.
The Blazers are probably going to try to move one or both of those guys to get some people to pair with our super young core. Anyone over 19 is ancient at this point on this team.
Picks probably, right?
Yeah, and so if we're going to keep trying to rebuild this young team around Shaden and Scoot and potentially Anthony, although I think Anthony might eventually be on the trade block too.
Aging out.
Yeah, he's like, 23? He's an old fart, but anyway, I think that definitely Jeremy and Brogdon and maybe even Aiton are on the trading block right now. The Blazers don't want to see those guys get hurt, and they've done a pretty good job of demonstrating their value already. And so I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of those guys as the season goes on. I don't think that they're shut down for the season right now necessarily, but I think that if anytime there's a question or a risk about whether they might end up hurting themselves, I think they're not going to play. Because also, like, who are we kidding here? We're not trying to win 45, 50 games this
if they're
season.
trading them or not, it doesn't make any sense to play them. If there's any risk, it's really any player on the team.
Maintain their value, see if you can get them to someone to bite, because I think all those guys are probably on their way out the door. I don't think that Aiton, we've talked about this a lot on this pod, he's shown some good signs like lately. He's definitely
sucks he's out. Soon as felt like I was starting to see something from him, he goes out with an injury. It's like, oh, here we go. This is kind of what I think we all expected, and it's happening. He just not the most consistent guy in the world, takes games off when he's playing or not, so it's a bit of a bummer to see from him.
Yeah, and I just think that there's a good chance that the brass are understanding that he's probably not the long-term center of the future that's going to give Scoot and Shaden a championship run. Yeah, I think we all agreed with that pretty much. So
I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone agrees with that. But I don't see him as a championship center, but I think there's a chance that he'd be on the block.
I think it's early for that, especially when there's been so many injuries to, when we had a stretch with no point guards. I think the roster turnover, everyone's young. I don't know if you can realistically say that with how everything's come together so far. I don't think we have the full story of what the team can be yet. But there's concerns out there. But talking about tonight's matchup, what matchup are you guys most excited to see out there on the floor?
Luka and Shaden Sharp.
Luka? What game are we talking about?
Who are they playing? I'm sorry.
The
Clippers. All right, Sharp and Harden then.
Yeah, same thing, right?
Yeah.
For this, all the
what
same
did that
reasons.
What did that matchup look like with Sharp and Luka?
I mean, what did it look like? Luka had his way in the first quarter.
Did they get much were they matched up very often in that game?
Mean,
I didn't get to see it. So
there was there's stretches out there. Tamani Kamara was everywhere on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Luka got off to a hot start.
Boy, he's having a crazy season, isn't he?
Yeah, he's looked really good. Kyrie
he just gets
had
better
a
every
fall.
year. Oh yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked bad. He looked like it got hurt bad. But tonight, I'm really
we're talking about the Mavericks.
to see. Yeah, I know Luka got traded. You heard it here first. No, I'm excited to see how Paul George is out there. Shaden Sharp is a guy that I think, molded around Paul George. I think that if he can be that type of player where he's consistent on defense, consistent on offense, can shoot from all three levels, can create his own shot, that's a guy I really like in
playoff
Shaden Sharp too. Yeah, and except for he performs in crunch time. No OT tonight. So I'm excited.
Are you excited with those comparisons, Riley? Drew Holiday is the ceiling for Scoot Henderson, and Paul George is the ceiling for Shaden Sharp.
It's definitely something that I've gotten more concerned about as time's gone on. I really have pretty high hopes for Scoot, but if he can't figure out how to score in some way, I don't care how he scores. He doesn't have to be a great shooter. He doesn't even have to be like a guy who can take it to the rack and take a lot of contact. It doesn't matter what it is. He just has to figure out some way to score in order to be the guy that we wanted him to be from the beginning, or the guy that I wanted him to be from the beginning. I mean, he's stepping into some big shoes, and he's not going to be, one of the best shooters the league's ever seen. We know that for a fact. But we do need scoring, just as a team. And in order to be one of the top players in the league, which we all want for the guy, he's going to have to figure out how to put the ball in the hoop sometimes. Drew Holiday is an amazing player. We talked about this a little bit. He was number 2 or number 3 on a championship team. But that means we're going to have to get at least one more superstar, in order for
That's
Scoot
why we're
to be,
tanking.
Yeah, because we're going to just keep trying to pair stars with him because he can't do it himself. I don't know. It's a little bit of a bummer to already put those kinds of limits on him. But I am very interested to see tonight when he's in there, whether he's paired up against maybe Terrence Mann, or even, if there's kind of some times when he's playing against Westbrook or even Harden, depending on how the switches work and stuff. I am very interested
Westbrook
to
could
see
be some fireworks.
Yeah,
that's
to see how he looks.
Some athletic point guards out on the floor.
How he looks against those guys.
I talked about this a little bit before the show, and you look at Scoot's early games. I think it was his first 12 games. Compare that to Russell Westbrook's. And I know around Rip City, we're not always the biggest fan of Russell Westbrook.
Oh, no.
But here's the thing. He's an MVP for a reason. And I think that Scoot has a different kind of head on his shoulders that's not as chaotic as Russell Westbrook's. Let's just put it that way. So if you compare their stats and you got a young baby Westbrook brewing, I think that's a lot more exciting sounding than a Drew Holiday. Whether you love Westbrook's game or not, I don't think they're going to have the exact same game either. Just the stats, just for people out there that are already saying, oh, I'm jumping off the Scoot bandwagon. I just have a couple things to say. Point guard is the hardest position to play in the NBA, or the hardest transition to make to the NBA, according to all the experts out there. Not saying I could do
the
it.
Reddit experts.
But, well, no, not the Reddit experts. We're talking about analysts, right? And players.
Who's your dude that you love, the draft expert on the Blazers?
You should know it by now.
I know. What's his name? Do you know it?
We're going to come back to that.
I feel like you don't know it right now. I feel like you can't think of it. What is his name? Mike
Schmidt.
Okay.
All right, so.
You remembered, I'm glad.
Anyways, back to what we were talking about. I think it's too early to jump off the bandwagon. Point guard's too hard to play right out the gate, as evidenced by a lot of young point guards. And then the other thing is the inconsistency with who's been in and out of the lineup.
Yeah. Including him.
He's only played, 12, 13, 14 games, it feels like. He missed that big stretch of games. So let's pump the brakes on putting the ceiling on him so far.
Bro, his defense looks awesome, too. That's one thing that I always come back to when I think about his struggles on offense, is his defense looks professional level at 19 years old in his first couple games in the league. So that's a huge positive sign. If he can keep that and increases his savviness on that end, so he's not fouling so much, and then he's also able to just chip in offensively, which it looks like he can do more than just chip in. He looks like he can be a real ball distributor, a quarterback of an offense. So he's got a lot of those innate skills that I'm not too worried about it. I think he's going to be a really special player. It's just been fun watching his kind of maturation and figuring it out, because right now he can't shoot. that's something he's going to have to figure out. He's going to figure out when to pick his spots, when to get aggressive, what moves to make, when to go for the mid-range, when to pull that three, and also maybe just settle down a little bit and get the heart rate down and some of those things, and get used to shooting in those kind of high-pressure situations.
There's times when Scoot gets the either rebound or gets past the ball in the fast break or the secondary break, and he turns on the Jets. And I saw it once in the Warriors game where he got the rebound. All the Warriors were in front of him. He broke through all of them and got fouled at the rim.
Did you see that Kyrie move he put on Kyrie?
Yeah.
He did the where he took it 1-on-5 and then did a reverse layup around Kyrie Irving. It looked exactly like Kyrie.
Exactly, and not a lot of people have that burst. And I think, like you said it, once the game slows down for him, which could take a little bit longer, more than everybody wants, especially at the point guard position, he's going to look better. He's definitely going to look better. And I think really we're going to need to wait an off season to kind of see what we're really looking at. And that's not what people want to hear, but it kind of works well with how the Blazers are strategizing towards rebuilding. Mm-hmm. So let's just give it time with Scoot. Let's see how he looks tonight against Westbrook. I know Westbrook chomps at the bit at any point guard that's in his path. So it's a good guy to kind of see where you're at and see how you measure up.
He's finally going to be able to play the Blazers without his daddy being on the team. It might be refreshing for Westbrook is it in Portland?
It's in the LA.
Okay. To play the Blazers and not have Dame Dollar on the other side. He's finally like, okay, finally someone else. Maybe I can try to control the situation a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, like you guys said, Scoot definitely, he's so young and he has a lot of time to figure stuff out. I just don't see so far a lot of seeds of where I see what I think it's still really up in the air what kind of scorer he's going to be. And, sometimes his shot looks pretty good. Sometimes his drive looks pretty good, but I'm not exactly sure where he's going to fit.
It's funny how he's just completely 180 opposite from Damian Lillard, too. I mean, as far as skill sets go at the point guard position, they just could not be more different.
Distributing and defense rather than scoring.
Yeah, and shooting. They just have completely different strengths, just the exact opposite, basically, strengths. So that's going to take some getting used to, I think, for Blazers fans, for people who've watched the Blazers for the last 10, 15 years. We're used to a real smooth-looking point guard, really can score a lot and makes all the professional-looking moves. And Scoot doesn't really have that polish to him yet, but just the raw skills, what he does have is
He came into the league at 23, Dame did.
Yeah.
Scoot's 19.
Polished.
I mean, give it a little bit of time. I know people I want my money and I want it now in this era, but let's give it time. I mean, so here's another alternative. Let's say Scoot doesn't work out, and that would suck.
Oof.
But
that's a heavy alternative.
That would suck. But if you still have Simons on the team, yes, less of a distributor, but you'd at least have Shaden, who has looked promising on the defensive end and is 6'6", and Simons. That's not an undersized backcourt. So you got to figure out, Shaden is the real keeper here. Kirby, you said it.
Yeah.
Shaden is the untouchable on the roster. I hope Scoot becomes an untouchable. If not, I don't think it's that bad to have Simons, Shaden, and whatever value you have in Scoot as a trade piece eventually.
That's tough to hear, man.
That's a bitter pill.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm just saying that's the opportunity. If the worst happens, that's your backup plan. That's not that bad of a backup plan.
Well, you mentioned the untouchable, and the guy that's really exciting to watch, fun to watch this year, Shaden Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And who's his matchup going to be tonight? Is he going to be playing against James Harden?
Probably Paul George. Harden will start at the point. We'll see.
It's going to be interesting. I mean,
what's the player comparison for Shaden Sharp right now? Ceiling. Tracy McGrady, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, I mean, I said Paul George, and that's kind of and this sounds pretty crazy. I think that's his mid-level comparison. If he just improves but then plateaus, Paul George. That sounds crazy. Tracy McGrady, that's a great example of kind of who I was thinking.
I love that comparison. I think someone in our comments
accurate.
Made that comparison, and I have been all about that one.
T-Mac gets listed a lot of times by old head NBA guys as the guy they least looked forward to going up against. It was T-Mac, Kobe. Those were the guys that were going to be a nightmare to try to guard.
Crazy that he's in the same breath as those guys.
Yeah, I think
potential-wise.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting
just
to see how he looks against a really, professional guy who's kind of in that same position.
Paul George.
Yeah, and Paul George. Paul George never quite, I don't think, hit those same heights, but he's the same kind of player. He's pretty long. He's been athletic, and he's a top level guy in that position. So it'll be a good test for Shaden. Yeah. I think Shaden might have a good game against him. I do. I think
it feels very hard to know what you're gonna get from Shaden right now. I feel like he's just hit that point where he has the potential to have a crazy game, but he just doesn't really have the consistency. It's like he could either have a game where he shoots 30% and has 5 turnovers, or he could easily have 30 and 10 rebounds and dominate the defensive end. So it's pretty hard to tell what you're gonna get from him. But yeah, that'd be awesome if he really did show up tonight.
I mean, we talked about age before. He's 20. That's another thing. Like, if he has a bad game, you can just kind of say he's 20. I mean, it sounds kind of like a cop-out, but it's really not. They're still learning the game. He didn't play in college. We always got to say that just because even less experience. So it just shows, I mean, I feel like every time I look down lately, he has 25 points or about 25 points. And he hasn't had that big explosion game where he has 40 points, but he's also not, he doesn't force things. That's what I love most about Shaden. You'll look down and he's shooting an efficient, 8 for 17 night. And
man, you are right. In his 3 games in December, he's averaging 25 points on 49%.
That's great.
44% from 3.
Great.
Yeah, he's shooting the lights out right now.
About a little under 7 rebounds, a little under 5 assists.
All great numbers. Yeah. And plays well on defense. That's what I'm saying.
Only 1 turnover a game. He's not really like a turnover machine necessarily. He had quite a few last month when he was
the point
asked to do a lot more. Yeah. But I think with Simons back, and at the very least tonight, he won't be asked to do that, to go out there and get 5 turnovers.
Yeah. It's just not fair to put a guy like that in that position. It's not
go out there and turn the ball over.
It's not even really fair to ask Scoot to be in that position right now, which is why Brogdon has been such a blessing, because Brogdon's able to go out there and kind of floor general. He's a great example for Scoot. And that way Scoot doesn't have to bring the ball up the floor all the time and try to make that first
I also feel like
pass.
That's not Simons.
No.
His special skill either, to be that sort of ball handler, distributed decision maker. Maybe he'll start to get into a rhythm as the season goes on. What is this, his 3rd game that he's played since he's come back?
Yeah. Since he's come back, yeah.
I gotta be honest. I think I can see Scoot growing into that kind of role, but I don't see Anthony or Shaden.
He's just a scorer, man.
They're just, both of those guys are scorers. Neither one of those guys, I don't think, should be bringing the ball up, making decisions. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like what it was like when, think about if Dame was 3 or 4 inches taller and had a real point guard, on the team. It could have been a completely different situation. Right. And in some ways, I feel kind of the same about Shaden and Simons. They need Scoot, or someone as a point guard. Right now, it's more
for periods of the game, but then you can also give them the ball and get out of their way during stretches too. I think Shaden's shown that ability that in the 4th quarter, go get a bucket, and he does.
And so has Ant.
Yeah.
Get out of his way and he'll score. He can do that.
But when it's halfway through the 1st quarter and the game's 7-9 and you're trying to establish some rhythm and stuff, and you're trying to get the ball down to Ayton or to Jeremy on the wing.
2 Ant turnovers.
That just kills your momentum.
It needs the fast break points on the other side.
You got to have a real point guard for those moments. And then midway through the 4th during a furious comeback or something, then totally, those guys are bucket getters, and that's what they can do. But there's a lot of different games within the game. It's very true, and sometimes you need a point guard.
Can you guys think of anybody that the Blazers will actually trade for this year, other than future picks?
I think it's picks.
I think it depends on if a young player falls out of rotation that they want to take a flyer on. Somebody like a Kuminga that I've brought up in the past. I don't know if they want to trade with the Warriors per se, just because they have their 1st round pick and they want them to keep dropping.
And the Gary Payton shit
and the Gary Payton debacle.
What if they throw him in again?
He's out again. He's hurt again. So
of course
no
he is.
Way. He's hurt.
Well,
that is alopecia's acting up again or whatever.
So I'm not sure about that, but obviously they'd be looking at wing prospects, if anything. What have you guys seen from Tamani Kamara and Jabari Walker this year that you've liked?
that I've liked. Their defense is insane. It's just like a complete difference maker for the team. Seeing them, their on-ball defense, their help defense, and then Walker also has the ability to get some rebounds.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
And then on the other side, Kamara looks like he can hit the shot. Eventually, will be a pretty reliable 3-and-D guy. So I like both of them as like that fifth best starter, player
or even bench depth. Yeah.
Or just that kind of player, the 3-and-D,
sure.
like no real
hustle, lunch pail.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think we're going to get to see a lot of them tonight because Jeremy's out, and the depth chart starts getting pretty shallow at that point. So I think we're going to see a lot of Tumani, probably a lot of Jabari. And I know the Blazers called back up some guys from Rip City Remix today. They
Mo
Harkless? No Mo Harkless.
Bring it back.
They called up Rupert and Chris Murray.
Oh wow, Rupert.
And one other guy, Moses Brown. So because we
bunch of difference makers there.
It's just a depth issue.
What is going on with Chris Murray's shot? It is the weirdest thing. It's like that elevator shot where have you noticed
he's left-handed, and so that kind of
makes it look weird.
Yeah, I don't think it looks bad. I think Chris Murray's been playing a lot better than we saw in like the preseason and early season.
It's hard to get much worse than that though, because he's a shooter, and what was he 0 for 15 or
whatever? He was pretty bad.
He was really he has a bizarre looking it looks like something that could work because it's so it's like a screwball, it's so off-putting that the defense is completely out of time and they go flying past because they're like, what did I just see? It's kind of like Luka in a way. It's like side step
or Sean Marion.
Just that
throw people
that
off.
switch up, that change up on the timing.
Can't predict it.
Yeah, and it's too bad because he's 23, and I was hoping he was coming in.
Well, it's just too bad. It's a funny way to start.
Well, because I thought he was going to kind of play minutes early on and be a difference maker as a first-round pick when you're 23. But Monty has
I was about to say we're blessed to have gotten Kamara for that role because I don't know how Murray would have performed in that position.
Yeah, I know. It was crazy how quickly, and it was obvious that Tumani was going to be overtaking Chris Murray. It was like the third game of the season. Everyone's like, start Tumani, because his defense has been just so good. He hasn't been shooting that great, but you were right. The shot looks pretty good, and it looks like it'll come with time. Mm-hmm. And so I really liked what I've seen from him. Jabari, he's been playing small ball 5 because they don't trust Moses Brown, and I understand why after seeing it. And, Reith has been out there doing his best. But I really even like Jabari at small ball 5. I think he's kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I wasn't sure if he was going to be a rotation
He's a
guy.
hustler, man, on defense in particular.
Seriously.
There was a few games back, I can't remember which one, but I was just astonished at his defense. He just seemed like he was everywhere, and it seemed like Blazers had a few guys that were just everywhere.
Yeah, and that's a big difference from what we've seen last year, right?
Touching on Kamara real quick again, I just want to say this before I forget. You were talking about his shot eventually falling. He watching him, he looks really competitive, and that sounds weird. Like most NBA players are competitive, But he had a few kind of missed opportunities against the Warriors. He had a charge that Draymond picked up on him, and then the play after that, he avoided the charge but kind of missed a little flip shot inside. And you could tell he's just frustrated with himself. He's smacking his hands together, And it made me kind of think that it's something that he'll probably clean up, and that area of his game will start to improve. I think really on both sides of the ball, he'll end up being a pretty solid player.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think Kamara's looking pretty good, and I think especially on defense. But I do have an issue. Once again, we're in a situation where we're playing pretty small. And it seems like we're going to be stuck playing pretty small for a while.
The defense is so different, though. There is some size issues, especially with Robert Williams going out, and some of those. But it's a different small than it was last year and the year before that and the year before that. It's Kamara and Shaden Sharp and Scoot. Those guys play defense.
So I think that maybe the difference is that we're not as small at the guard position. Our backcourt has gotten bigger, and even if they're not physically taller, they play bigger. But I just feel like we don't have a whole lot of talent or depth in the front court, and in the front court, the guys that are the best are kind of not big enough. Like, we've talked about this a lot. I don't like Jeremy being forced to play the power forward. I don't think that's where he's best served. And we've got Jabari playing a small 5. And I mean, DeAndre's not even in the rotation at the moment because of injury stuff, and who knows?
I don't
when he's
really know
coming
if
back.
I agree with that. I feel like it's a better issue to have having bigger guards and smaller bigs than other way around.
I think it is
with
better.
the NBA. You're able to switch out more. Basically, everyone is guarding everyone on certain lineups for the Blazers. It's just like everybody is getting switched, and the defense looks pretty good throughout. I just don't think it's as imperative to have like a huge guy inside when you don't have all these small guards getting blown by all game long like we've dealt with the last few years.
It helps, but I still think that and again, this isn't even a problem this year because the Blazers aren't going to be a competitive team this year. But if we have a plan to get competitive in games against Joker and AD, we're going to get destroyed by those guys if we have Reith and Jabari out there trying to play against them. We need a big guy in there at some point, and I don't think it's DeAndre. So
even if you don't believe in Ayton at this point or not, I think that help is on the way in the terms of draft picks. And yes, that's still a ways out, but that's where you're at with the rebuild. If that OKC, or not OKC, I was just thinking of OKC being the final product that we want to be. If the Warriors' first round pick holds, and I've talked about this a lot, that's one of the reasons for optimism right now, and we get another lottery pick out of that, you're not going to reach for a player, but you're probably not going to pick a guard either with one of those picks because you've got your stable of guards that you're going with for now. I think one of them is going to get used on a forward and one of them is going to get used on a big. Right now, this might not be the strongest draft coming up, but a lot of the players in the lottery are like wings. Mm-hmm. There's a couple big guys in there, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". You got a Sarr in there. Sarr projects to be a really good player. And
is he 7 foot?
He's like an Evan Mobley guy. Yeah, he's like same thing as Evan Mobley. And that would be a great player in the middle. Defender, 7'1", I think is what he is. Oof. Mobile. And then you got other wings out there. There's like a Buzelis. He's like a 6'10" shooter. Mm-hmm. And that would bring size. So there's options coming up that you can kind of... The core is not complete yet. That's what I would say.
Definitely.
Like, yes, there's concerns with size, and I agree that there needs to be more size added. And I also agree with you, Kirby, that there has been strides defensively because of the switchability. But I think that size will be added, whether that's around Ayton, whether that's getting rid of Ayton and adding more size. I think either way is still an option, and more size will be added, just like OKC. They added J-Dub and Chet. And now look at them. Yeah. They don't have as many issues.
One thing to help you alleviate some concerns. I don't think you'll have to worry about the position that Jeremy Grant's playing for too much longer, the 4 or the 3. I think that either way he'll probably be playing 4 or 3 for a different team pretty soon. Relatively soon. You won't have to worry about that one as much because it is something we've been stressed about for the last few months.
It's just not the right place for him, but we need it on the team because we don't have another 4 and 5 that can start. So he has to start at the 4.
It would be fun to have like a bouncy, real tall guy play that 4 position, like Buzelis or something like that.
Yeah, and Buzelis is. We'll see what happens with the draft class. That's something that, as Blazer fans, we're going to have to familiarize ourselves with the draft picks. That's just how it's going to be. We knew it going in. 6-15. We're not the Wizards at 3-18, but...
Go on a Wizards rant for a second, please.
Okay.
We've gotten several of these for a private showing just for ourselves that you guys need to...
I just want you guys to imagine being a Wizards fan for a second. They haven't won 50 games.
God, no, don't make me.
The Wizards haven't won 50 games, and I think 50 years. I'm not even exaggerating. They get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs every single season, whether it's through the play-in or the 6th seed. Whatever spot they're at, they're not a high seed ever. When's the last time you can remember the Wizards doing anything in the playoffs other than getting eliminated by LeBron with Deshaun Stevenson? Now you go to the recent time with being a Wizards fan.
Hey, they got Jordan Poole.
Yes, thank you. They have Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma as their franchise cornerstones. They don't have a single young guy that they can count on other than
Oh.
Can you pronounce the name of the first rounder they drafted last year? Colaby? I don't even know
Oh,
how to
yeah,
pronounce
was that
Bilal Colaby?
Yeah,
I think that's it.
I
So-
remember you had that dial.
Yeah, he had it dialed. So they're 3-18 right now, and that's where the Wizards are at. Would you rather be a Blazers fan with Shaden Sharp, Scoot, and Simons, or a Wizards fan? I think it's pretty obvious.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie, it's been a little bit annoying being a Blazers fan. It's like kind of been toxic in a way. It's tough reading the comments on like an Instagram post from the Blazers page. It's just like everyone complaining about the rebuild, about trading Dame, about Scoot, and then someone else coming in and arguing about that. But man, it could be so much worse. We could be Wizards fans.
Thank you.
I mean, it could be better. We could be like Thunder fans right now.
Thunder fans were Blazer fans 2 years ago.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
I keep telling everybody.
You got to go through your struggles to reach those highs. It's just as Blazers fans, we have an inordinate amount of struggle, I think.
Not to take the wind out of anybody's sails, but the Wizards did just take Philadelphia to double overtime.
No way.
No, they lost by 40.
I was going to say. Last time we checked the score, they were down 50.
That would have been a crazy comeback. You remember when we were live doing the podcast and the Heat came back on the Bucks and won
Oh,
in
yeah.
the playoffs?
Down like
and we
28
were
or
like,
something.
no way!
Yeah, Washington looks horrendous, and they don't have a future.
I mean, not yet. They're trying, but what did they get for Bradley Beal? Like 3 second-round picks? I mean, they didn't get anything for the guys they shipped out. Kuzma's locked in. I mean, Kuzma is locked in. I just said that sentence.
And Poole, man, imagine having those two guys be your go-to. I mean, that's.
I know this isn't a Wizards fan podcast. I'm just saying, as a Blazer fan, we have so much
Thank
more.
God we're not you.
We have so much more to look forward to than what some other similar rebuilding teams do. We might not have the star of stars with Wembanyama or something like that, but Shaden looks pretty good. Ant's pretty good for like excitement. You know, Scoot still can build.
Another one to touch on is the Pistons. That's that's another sort of cautionary tale that the Blazers I think need to avoid. Is that like
on the flip side,
building
rebuild forever?
Yeah, rebuilding and having those young players and those Cade Cunningham. He looks like the real deal. He looks like he should be winning. But I think that when you continue to try to blow it up forever, to tank forever, that winning culture just doesn't get established, and you're seeing that this year. It's just really hard for them to turn it around. They don't really have anyone on their team that's ever won in the NBA.
Monty Williams, you would think, would be the stabilizing force, but
no veteran players. That's why, again, I've been kind of harping on this all season, but I really liked that the Blazers did keep Brogdon. They went out and got Brogdon. They kept Jeremy Grant. You need those players on a team like this just to keep the fire going, because otherwise the fire's just going to die and you're not going to be able to get those embers burning, no matter how much potential there is there.
Yeah, the NBA is largely driven by talent. That's something that we know, but it's not solely driven by talent. Team culture means something. Winning culture means something, and it can last through some rough times. We've seen that happen throughout the league. And yeah, the Blazers have got to stay competitive. And that's been the fun thing about this season, is that even though they're losing a lot of games, and like you said earlier, the record's starting to look pretty ugly, they're out there competing, and the guys are looking good. And like, you can take wins even in a loss. You can take that win of like, I figured out how to do something tonight, for Shaden or for Anthony or for Scoot. And that's a big deal. So I'm glad they're playing good basketball even if they're losing.
I'm going to paint you guys a picture. So let's say the end of the season.
Paint a picture.
Well,
do you remember Shaden Sharp?
Bob Ross.
Oh, yeah. They were like, can you paint us a picture? He's like, paint a picture?
And then these guys see the mac and cheese, where he's like, mac and cheese. They asked him his favorite food for Thanksgiving, and he said mac and cheese over everything, and it was really funny.
He is a legend.
He is.
Shout out Shaden Sharp, best interview in the NBA.
Let me give you guys a description, how about that, of just something that would be fun to watch.
Picture.
So let's say down the season, it's been a long year. We've lost a lot of games, but maybe people get traded. Let's say Scoot starts turning it on at the end of the year. That's going to give all Blazer fans a reason to tune in. Let's say he's playing well, efficient.
How many triple doubles
is
he going to have when he turns it on?
Well, who knows? Let's say in this magical picture 2. That'd be enough for me, right? 1 would be enough for me. But
he's going to have the back-to-back triple doubles like Evan Turner did.
Legendary Evan Turner.
How many mil? How many
How
mil
many
per
mil
triple
for
double
Evan
did we
Turner?
pay?
Yeah,
that
we
guy?
were ranting about that before we came on to the year where Blazers signed Evan Turner and Myers Leonard those were the big
Mo
offseason
Harkless.
back
Back on the remix.
Stack on the remix.
Oh,
Call him up.
Neil Olshey days. You remember him standing there in the suit presenting this? Like, this is the next thing that you're gonna pay for. As Blazers fans, get used to it.
We've gotten away from the scoop picture. We've turned it into Neil. But my point being, I agree with you, Riley. Small victories. This isn't going to be the year where we win a championship. Watch the development. It could be a lot worse. Let's just have fun. The Clippers are going to have a hard-fought game tonight. Let's just put it that way.
Hope so.
So what's your
I was curious what you guys think on the over-under for tonight.
What is
It's
the
a
over-under?
13 and a half. Or, it went up to 14 and a half.
they're bumping
In the last 5 minutes, it went from 13 and a half to 14 and a half.
They heard our breakdown and they're like,
I'm going over on that.
You think they're going to lose by more than 14 and a half?
nah, it's going to be a 3-point game going into the fourth quarter. And then the Clippers are going to pull it away and make it an 11-point victory.
I think that's probably a pretty good prediction, that it's going to be hard fought through a lot of the game, and then at the end, the experience and the talent are just going to pull away. I think it's going to end up being more than 14 and a half.
Yeah.
I think probably it might be a 20-point game.
Yeah, that's kind of right. To be honest with you, I kind of sense a massacre coming. I think it's going to be like a 20-point game at the end of the first quarter, and it's going to be that way for most of the game. But
Let's hope
that's why they play the games.
Let's
Prove
hope
me
we see
wrong,
some good
Blazers.
things tonight at least.
We'll see who's right, who's
When
wrong.
we start, are we about done here?
Yeah, I think so.
I think
Wrap
so
her up,
too.
guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our live show, live podcast from the Logo.
Let us know if you want us to do more of these pregame shows. This
Yeah.
was kind of a fun way to break down the matchup coming up. So if you guys dig it, let us know.
Appreciate you guys preparing for the game with us. We have a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah.
Thanks
Back on
again.
set.
Yep.
Rip City, baby.
Sitting right where I belong, next to Riley and Colton. See you guys.
Yeah.